Okay, so we are now going to jump into copyrights and licensing. This is something that I've been waiting to get into for a little bit. I wanted to go into Photoshop and, jump in and, kind of get our hands dirty for a little bit. But one thing that we do need to address are copyrights and licensing. So moving forward here, all of our works, should we be using things on the internet, you will be required now to submit image bibliographies, basically letting me know where you're getting these images from. So just kind of a real quick intro to copyrights. Here's a short video that I'm going to play.
In today's digital world, it's easier than ever to copy, paste, mashup, remix, download, and publish content. People's writing, artwork, videos, and images can be inspiring, but they're also easy to take without thinking twice. When people treat the internet like a free-for-all, legal and ethical situations can arise. That's why it's important to know about copyright and fair use. It would help you give and receive credit where credit is due. So what's a copyright? Copyright law protects your control over the creative work you make. It requires people to get your permission before they copy, rework, or share what you make. Most things that you find, download, and copy and paste from the internet are copyrighted. That doesn't mean that everything online is on lockdown and can't be used. It can, as long as you check who owns it, get permission to use it, give credit to the creator, buy it if necessary, and use it responsibly, then you're not stealing. Now, there are times when you can use a small part of someone else's copyrighted work without permission or paying a fee. This is called fair use. Fair use only applies when using content in certain instances: schoolwork and education, news reporting, criticizing or commenting, and comedy or parody. Specific guidelines, what we call the 4 points of fair use, must also be followed. First, you can only use a small amount of the work. Second, you have to add new meaning to the work to make it original. Third, you need to rework it and use it in a totally different way. Finally, you have to use it for nonprofit purposes. In other words, you can't make money off of your new creation. No matter what, it's a good idea to give credit to the creator of the work you use. It's just a sign of respect. So what should you do if you find something online that you want to use? As a rule of thumb, check who owns it, get permission to use it, give credit to the creator, buy it if necessary, and use it responsibly, which means judging for fair use. You're a creator, innovator, and inspirer. Think twice about your rights and responsibilities in our online culture, and then pay it forward.
Okay, so just to kind of go over some of these again. So we have fair use, right, which we just kind of learned from that video. But basically, fair use will allow for the reproduction of a copyrighted material for certain purposes without obtaining permission and without paying a fee or royalty. But just keep in mind that this is a pretty rare category that, a lot of these cases end up going to court, where then it's decided by a judge whether or not this is fair use. But for our purposes, it's not really going to be an issue at all, because I'm going to have you create image lists and bibliographies regardless of where you get the images from. But a big majority of where you may be getting your information or where you may be getting your images is going to be the public domain. And I'll kind of walk us through, and I'll show you some examples and how we could go about citing these images. But basically, the public domain are images that belong to the public, and they're not subject to copyright. So essentially, all you really have to do is just label that the image is in the public domain, and that's what I'll have you do for works here on some of the sites that I've given you. And then the last thing is that, images, whether it's fair use or public domain, they're all going to belong to a certain copyright license. And here, the work has a specific license that will allow you to use or reuse it or edit or modify. And you may or may not have to attribute the original creator. It just kind of depends on the specific licensing. And I've already mentioned this before for you to look into, but creativecommons.org, we're going to go there, and I'll kind of show you how we can navigate through all these licenses. Okay, so I'm at the Creative Commons homepage here. And if you've never been here before, definitely take the time to go through this and check out everything they have to offer. Now, there's a lot of information here, so try not to get overwhelmed. You don't have to know everything here, but you should definitely familiarize yourself with the different licenses that they have. So I'm just going to click on what we do, and a good place to get started would be right here, frequently asked questions. And we can see there's a lot of information. And it can be overwhelming, but it's really not that bad as long as we kind of stick to a few basic guidelines. So let's start here. So what are Creative Commons licenses? And take the time and go through this, but you should know that there are 6 different licenses that they offer, and you should know a little bit about each one of them. And if we just scroll down here, right, they kind of give you information about these licenses, right, and what you can and can't do with them. And they range from the most open, this first one here, attribution by. This essentially means that you can use the work, you can edit it, you can remix it, you can even use it commercially, but you have to give attribution to the original author. So you have to cite and give credit to the original author. And as we go down, they get a little bit more restrictive, right? We can see no derivatives. It means you can't edit it, right? You can't you can use it for commercial and non-commercial purposes, but you can't change it, right? You can't do anything to it that way. And then the last one here, which is the most restrictive, attribution, non-commercial, no derivatives, means that you can share it, but people have to credit you and they can't change it and they can't use it for commercial purposes either. So you should brush up on these 6 licenses here, and I'll show you how you know what images have what licenses here. So one thing that Creative Commons offers is they have their own search filters here where you can check, I want to use something for commercial purposes, I want to use something to modify or adapt or build upon, and then they have these various engines that they're going to go through. So let's just say we want to look for a dragon image, and I'm going to use Google Images here, although I could use any one of these, but I think most of us are probably most familiar with Google Images. Okay, and here we can see right here in blue, labeled for non-commercial reuse with modification. So if I click here, there's other stipulations that I can search by, but I'll just keep it on that one there. And usually I would say you probably want to change your size to large for the purposes of our class. And here we have all of our images, and if we just click on one here, and we want to visit the page, okay, I can see very quickly, public domain, so free for personal and commercial use, no attribution required. So if you were doing your own independent work outside of this class, you could use this image and you wouldn't have to cite or attribute it to anybody. But for our class, you're still going to have to label it as public domain. Right? So what I would have you do in this case, if you were using this image, is I would have you copy the link, and then if you're going to be using images that you're finding online with all of the future projects now, you're going to have to submit an image bibliography with that. So in this example, if we had that image that we wanted to use, I would have you copy that link and then just list public domain. Okay, so I still at least know that you're getting the information and you're not claiming that as your original photograph. So that's what you would do in the case of a public domain image. Okay. So let's say we want to, let me go back here and show you another feature of, they have their own beta search here, which is kind of interesting. So, and they have a really nice feature here where you basically just copy paste the information, and I'll show you that. So let's click here, and let's say we're looking for nature, right? And there's filters here, so you can search by different licenses, right? You can search by public domain as well too. But let's just say we found an image that wasn't public domain, but it had a license that says that we can use it. So I'm gonna, okay, so here's one here. So here's a nice image. We've got an independent author, it's not public domain. We can see what the license is here, and if you click here, right, this will take you to a page that tells you what that license is. So attribution 2.0. So you are free to copy and redistribute the material. I can remix it, transform it, I can edit it, even commercially, but I have to give appropriate credit. I have to provide a link to the license and indicate if I'd made any changes. So if I just used it, I don't have to say what changes there were, but let's just say I put it into Photoshop and let's say I made it black and white or something, right? I would, after I give the credit, I would just say, altered to black and white or something. And I'll just show you how we can copy this. So let me go back here. And here's a really nice way. So I can copy the HTML, right, to the photo, or I can copy to text. And this is what I would have you do here. So if I wanted to use this image, I would copy to text and then come to our image bibliography, and then I would just paste. And that's it. That's all you have to do there. But the things that you want to make sure that you get anytime you're giving attribution is you want to make sure you get the title, the author, the source, and the license. And I'll provide you with a kind of a quick link that goes through on things to remember when you're citing and how to cite for an image, or how to cite for text, or how to cite for multiple sources. So it's really not too bad, right? As long as you're doing that, then you're in the clear. Okay, and the last thing I'll show you about Creative Commons, so those of you that are already putting work out there, you may want to think about getting your own licenses, and it's really easy. So if you have your own work or your own websites that you're eventually going to be putting out there, it's really easy to do. Once you kind of know what licenses you want for your own work, right, you can come here and answer just a couple questions, right? So do you want to allow adaptions of your work? Yes or no. Allow commercial use of your work? Yes or no. And then it'll tell you the license that it suggests that you use. And then if you have a web page, you can copy the text here and paste it, and that will show the icon giving your work the appropriate license. Okay? So that might be further down the road for some of you, but some of you may also be familiar with this and are already using these licenses. So again, go through this, don't get overwhelmed, but from this point on, all of our projects where we will be using images from the internet, if you're finding images out there, you will now have to submit an image bibliography with every project that we do, and you'll have to designate even the public domain images. But for those, just a simple link and then public domain is fine. For everything else, you do have to, again, the title, the author, the source, and then the license, right? Simply writing out Creative Commons doesn't cut it, because Creative Commons that's just an organization. It's not a license. So if we can see here, let me go back to that image. Let me go back here. Okay, I'll go back to that same image I was at. So if I go to that image there, so this is the license, CC by 2.0. So that is the license, right? Just simply saying Creative Commons, that's not enough, right? That's just an organization. So make sure that you're getting the actual license down there. And again, I'll post some links that will be helpful for these types of copyright licenses. Okay,